Welcome to the Policy Project Speaker Series. We are so excited to have Brooke Romney with us. Hi, Brooke.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here.
This is truly exciting for me, especially because we're friends and I have loved the modern manners in my home for years now. So excited. So excited to have you on.
Thank you. I think we're going to dive into a really great conversation.
I am thrilled about it. Well, before we get started, let me just give everybody a little bio. I mean, everyone knows who you are, but just to get that checked off, we'll start with your bio and then we'll dig in. Brooke Romney is the best-selling author of 52 Modern Manners for Today's Teens, Volumes 1 and 2, and 52 Modern Manners for Kids. The books combined have sold over 100,000 copies, which is amazing, and changed the lives of teens and their families worldwide. Brooke is committed to helping guide parents through the teen years with practical advice, compassion, and optimism. She has created an online community at Brooke Romney Writes, where over 150,000 parents gather weekly for education and support. When she has free time, you can find her volunteering in schools, reading a book, or building relationships. She has a weakness for gummy candy, sunshine, youth sports, and the mountains. There is nothing more important to her than connection. So welcome. Well, I like to tell people that I'm solar powered. So we have that in
Perfect.
find me outside in the winter in my full body coat, just trying to get a little sun on my face when the sun's out.
Yes, it's such a gift.
Well, today we're going to talk about how to like yourself more. I'm so excited to learn from you. So do you want to just dive in on the topic?
Yes, I heard a quote quite a while ago that says, people who feel good about themselves make other people feel good too. Turns out the opposite is also true. People who feel bad about themselves make other people feel bad too. Remember that. And as I read that quote, one of the things that came to mind is that we need to work on liking ourselves, and not just in that superficial way by, staring in the mirror and saying, you're beautiful, you're great. That can be helpful, but really going deeper about how we can truly like ourselves so that we can have the power and the ability to help others feel the same way.
I love it. And I couldn't agree more. It's so important. This is going to be so good. All right.
So the first
yeah.
tip that I try to help teenagers understand is that people who feel good about themselves make time for real connection. And this can be really tricky in a digital world because for the first time in the history of ever, you can never see someone and also not ever feel bored. When we were growing up, there was a point where, the TV was only showing MASH reruns, or, there was nothing else going on a digital device. And so you were forced to go outside and knock on someone's door and see if they could hang out. And today you can really stay by yourself all day and never get that actual bored feeling. And so one of the things that makes it really difficult is because of that, we have to force ourselves to sometimes do things that we don't want to do, or what is not easiest for us in the moment, in order to get that connection in the long run.
I love that. So how does someone identify how they connect? This may be like a new idea for some of our teens. Like, how do you go about identifying that feeling of real connection?
Well, one of the things that I've recently learned is in order for us to have the oxytocin hormone, which actually is that feel-good hormone, we need to have eye contact and touch. So if you are not connecting with people where you can have eye contact, or where you can touch them or wrestle with them or even give them a high five or a handshake or something like that, then it's probably not quite enough for you to actually feel connected to somebody. And so I just really like to encourage people, teens and adults, that if you don't feel like you have enough connection and it feels difficult for you, there are ways to make it easier. You can join a club, you can join a group, you can go watch a movie with your family and sit close together. You can ask a little brother or sister to go out and play catch with you. You can get a job where you are interacting with people face to face and working with coworkers. There are so many ways to do this. Sometimes people feel discouraged because they say, well, I'm not an extrovert and I don't feel comfortable doing that, and it's really hard for me, or I'm shy. And while that is all very valid, you only get better at something when you do it. So if you can look for ways that feel a little more safe, like a job or a club at school or joining a rec sports team, then you get some more exposure of, okay, this is how I connect. Start observing people, the people that connect well, what do they do? What do they say? And start learning from them. The worst thing to do is to say, I'm not good at this. This isn't for me. And so I'm going to stay by myself. That doesn't serve you, and that doesn't serve anyone around you either.
Yeah. Something I've noticed about connection for me is that as I've gotten older, I used to go into a party and I'd want to say hi to as many people as I could. And I've learned with connection and for myself that I now like to have meaningful conversation with a few people. And that is what really makes me feel connected. That gives me that. Yeah.
And that's so much less overwhelming for someone to think, I don't have to know the names of the 20 people. I don't have to make the rounds. I need to look for one person. If you feel like Jane does, I need to look for one or two people that throughout the night might make me feel more connected.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Such a great tip to start on. Okay, what's next?
The second tip I have is that people who like themselves are comfortable being uncomfortable. And we talked a little bit about that before, but I have a really cool story. There was a girl who decided to run for student body office when she was a sophomore, and she felt like she had a pretty decent chance of winning. And she also felt like if she didn't win, she would just die. Like she would never be able to go back to school ever again. It would be so embarrassing. It would be so difficult. Everybody would think poorly of her. And so she did all the things she was supposed to do, and she ran for this student body office, and she actually didn't win. And she just wanted to crawl into a hole and, never be seen again. And when she went back to school, because, you can only sit in your room for so long. So when she went back to school, what she found is that people were actually really kind and they were generous. And they said, oh, I'm so sorry that you didn't win. Or they didn't say anything at all. They'd completely forgotten about the election that happened the week before. And she was so worried about all these things for no reason. And you would think that after that, she would say, okay, I've tried it. I'm not going to do that again. But she decided to run for a student body office again, junior year. And again, she didn't make it. And she decided to run again, senior year. But this time she said, okay, I better do something different. And so she started getting really uncomfortable. She started talking to people she hadn't talked to before. She started volunteering at places wherever the school was doing something. She started to compliment people. She did all these things, and she did get elected senior year. But my favorite thing that she said about her experience was, I can't imagine what would have happened if I would have just said, I lost, I'm done. And she said, I grew so much through losing and being uncomfortable and getting back up. And I made all these friends I would never have made. And so I think a lot of times, kids and adults, if we do something and we're not good at it immediately, if we're not a star immediately, if we don't have 10 people coming up and saying they're so glad we were there, then we say, I can't do this. But the more often we can push through that uncomfortable spot, you go out and try out for the tennis team and you're not very good, and you don't make it, or you're, the lowest rung. Instead of saying, okay, I'm done, say, this is uncomfortable, and what can I do to get more comfortable here? What effort can I put in? And I think it makes a huge difference in the way that we all enjoy life, is just being comfortable with not being the best, with not knowing everyone, with not being the person who's lived in your area for, your whole life. Being able to still put yourself out there is a real, real gift.
I love that. Something I've learned about getting uncomfortable is that when you try something that makes you uncomfortable, it brings growth, and growth brings confidence. So even if you're not successful, you can have that confidence in yourself and that growth that you did try something new, and then you're willing to try it again. I love that. And it's reminding me of just this idea of getting uncomfortable and not being the best at something. Kristen Andrus says that we all think that people are experts when we show up to events or people speaking or a CEO, but everybody's just making it up. Everybody in the room is probably as uncomfortable as you. So remembering that we're all not experts, we're all uncomfortable, we're all stretching in ways, I think makes those risks a little easier.
I think so too. I had an interesting experience where I was judging a speech competition, and one of my kids asked me, they're like, "Oh, what qualified you to do that?" And I said yes. Truly, they had asked a bunch of people, and I don't know who said no and who said yes, but sometimes what qualifies you is just your willingness and remembering that, so now I've judged a speech competition, and I do have experience now, but I didn't have it before. And just my willingness to say yes qualified me. And I think it's good for all of us to remember that.
So great. Okay. Tip number 3.
So my third tip is that people who like themselves live their values. And this could be a very, very long conversation, but I think I can sum it up with an example. So there was a boy who loves to learn, and he's also very honest. And those are his values. He loves learning and he's honest. And he got into a math class that felt a little difficult, especially with his sports schedule. And he started getting overwhelmed. And so he started calling someone to see if they would just send him the answers to the assignments. Mm-hmm. And that goes against his values of loving learning and being honest, but he just felt like he just couldn't handle it all. And so he was cheating every week to get those assignments done. And the cool thing is he was getting 100% because he picked the right person to cheat from. So that was going well. And he's getting these 100% on his assignments, but he's still like not feeling great about himself. He's a little difficult. He's a little angsty because he's just out of alignment with who he really is. And then it comes time for the test, and he realizes that he hasn't done any of the work. And so in order to do okay on this test, he's going to have to cheat again. And so he figures out a way to be able to cheat and ends up getting a B and ends up doing well in the class that term. Interestingly enough, when he gets congratulated for his good grades, he just feels like garbage inside because he was not living his values. And because he doesn't feel good about himself, he's not his best self to his family, to his friends. He's uncomfortable. He's nervous often about being figured out. And it's just really, really a tough spot. Well, he decides he's not going to do that anymore for the second term. And he still has a heavy sports schedule. But he just realizes he can't continue to live outside of his values like he has been and be happy with who he is. And so he decides to get some tutoring. He tells his parents he's not really understanding things and he needs some tutoring. He's going in after school, which means every once in a while he's late to practice and has to have those repercussions. And he just starts working really hard to be able to be caught up in math. He has to forego some social things because the class is difficult and he has to do his homework. And he's actually not even doing as well. He's not getting 100% on his homework. And the test comes and he gets a B-, and he ends up, instead of having a great grade in the class, he has an okay grade in the class. But interestingly enough, he felt good about who he is, because he was living his values. He was being honest. He was learning. He was working hard, and that's who he is. And so it's really interesting. I think a lot of times, regardless of your age, the minute you start living outside your values, doing things that go against who you are and who you really want to be, there's some dissonance, and it comes across as a lack of confidence. So if you are someone who loves and believes in kindness and inclusivity, and you're the kid who is constantly telling someone that yes, you'll hang out with them, and then choosing a different group or a cooler group or a more fun group and leaving an old friend out, that's not going to feel good to you. Even if you're having a good time, there's going to be a part of you that doesn't feel like you're living your values. Not everyone has the same values. Someone else might not have inclusivity as one of their core values. Maybe one of their core values is variety. And so when they go with different friends and have a different group and all those things, they don't have that dissonance. It doesn't feel hard or wrong to them because they really love variety and they love excitement and they love change. And so that works for them. So really figuring out like what matters to you, what's in your core, what's part of your character, and working hard to live in alignment with that.
Oh, that is so great. And I've watched this in some of my kids. You can see it. And I've actually felt it in myself and not
Totally.
realize sometimes that what my core value is. Maybe it
Hmm.
is um I'm not adding something into my schedule that really means a lot to me. And when it's missing, I don't feel as happy. And I need to add that core value item back in because it's part of what I value. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, with this organization, most people who are part of it believe in service and giving. And
Yeah.
I think you'll find that when you don't have that in your life, it does feel like there's something missing. You'll feel a little hollow. You'll feel a little less confident. You feel like you're missing something. And really listening to ourselves and taking cues from, boy, I'm not feeling myself right now. I'm not feeling great. I'm not feeling my best. And kind of going through and saying, what's off in my life? What could I fix? What could I add? What could I subtract? What could I change?
I love that. And I love that in your example, it really just takes deciding to like stop doing something that isn't in your values or start doing something. So it's something that you can take action on. I love that.
Yes. The fourth tip, and we can go through this one really fast, is just to take care of yourself physically. No one can run on empty. There have been a million studies about the importance of sleep, and I know that's also something that's difficult, especially during the teen years when you're busy and you have a lot going on. Um, Getting enough sleep can change your life. Eating food that nourishes your body can change your life. Getting into nature, going outside, connecting, having screen-free time, all of those things can really change our confidence and how we feel about ourselves. There was someone that I know and love, and they were like, I just feel off. And I'm like, okay, have you been outside? Have you connected with anyone? You know, no one feels like their best self if they're connected to a device or a gaming system all the time. It's just not how we're built. And so honoring how we're built, doing those things that make you feel good physically can actually have a huge impact on how you feel emotionally and mentally and how confident you feel every day. There's times when I feel like the world is falling apart and I get a good night's rest and I wake up and feel like the world is actually okay. And I think that's something that everyone can relate to.
Absolutely. And I love that a lot of the projects that we worked on with the policy project take care of physical needs. So period products, taking care of yourself, the teen centers, so that everyone has the opportunity to have a shower, clean clothes, food if they're hungry. And then this year, the Focus Student Project, we're focusing on cell phones, but also on availability to funds to have lunch and breakfast for free or reduced prices. So love that, meeting physical needs.
So, tip number 5 is that people who like themselves don't get stuck in the comparison trap. And I remember being in middle school, but I also know how it feels today. And it is so easy to think, you know, things are going great. You're really happy with who you are. You like your life. And then you pull out your phone and you see that, you went to California for spring break and someone else went to Paris. And all of a sudden your trip to California doesn't seem all that fun. Or you got this great new pair of shoes and somehow someone's posting the shoes that they got that are so far out of your price range, you will never be able to afford those. And all of a sudden, those shoes that you used to love, you don't like them anymore. I think the same thing can happen even with friend groups. There was a girl who had a wonderful friend group, and they were kind, and they were supportive, and they were loyal. But she spent a lot of time on social media looking at this really, really fun friend group that looked like they were having the best time ever. They had the pictures and the people, and they just knew how to sell it. And one time she got that coveted invite to that friend group, the friend group. And she went expecting it. Yes, yes, we all know that one. And she went expecting that she would have it would change her life. She'd have the most wonderful time. And she went, and what she realized was it was a lot of posting and a lot less connecting.
Mhm.
And she went home and was thinking, wow, like all that time I wasted wishing I could have been part of them, I actually had something really great of my own. And I think that the more often we compare ourselves to others or our lives to others, the harder it is for us to be confident. And I think it's tricky because it's really natural. Comparison is just one of those things, right? There's no way I'm not going to see those shoes and think I would like those shoes. Or I wish I could afford those shoes, or I wish I could go to Bali for spring break. The difference is that as we do that, staying grounded in what we feel grateful for and what we know. And so one of the ways that I can do this is I can be happy for someone else instead of jealous. So the way you're going to switch your thinking on that is you see someone's shoes, and instead of saying, oh man, I wish I could have those shoes, instead you say, wow, they got some great shoes. I'm so happy for them. Wow, they got to go to Paris. I would like to go to Paris one day. I'm going to find out what they loved on their trip. What I've noticed is that when we feel jealous, if we can lean into it, if we can get a little closer, that can be a way for us to remove the jealousy and feel excited for other people, to be able to cheer them on, to be able to feel happy for them, instead of feeling like it means something bad about who we are. There's also times in life where you might just have to get off social media or mute that one friend who seems to get and have everything. There's nothing wrong with taking care of yourself so that you can feel confident and happy and living a good life. And sometimes we feel strong enough to just be happy for others. And sometimes it's time for us to mute something for just a minute. And sometimes that depends on what's going on in our lives and how we're feeling. But making sure that we're taking care of that comparison, the comparison trap that we all get in every once in a while, and sometimes more often than we want to admit.
I love that. And I have found with myself that if I do have a dip where I'm like, oh, I can look at social media and feel happy for everybody. And then I get to a point, all of a sudden I'm like, oh, this is making me feel bad. I'm like, what do I need to do to correct what's going on for myself so that I feel better and I'm in a better place? So it's an indicator for me that I've noticed that something might be off and I need to dig a little deeper. But I love that. And I think too, I was thinking about comparison and how sometimes we compare our own personalities or our gifts, and being grateful and recognizing that we all have different gifts. And if we all were the same, life would be so boring. But I've noticed with teenagers and with myself and my kids that sometimes we compare not just stuff, but our actual traits and personality and looks. And I think turning to gratitude, like you said, for who we are, what gifts we have, and that every shade of color of hair and every personality trait is needed to make a beautiful life.
Yes, I love that you brought that up, because one of the things that can be difficult is, like you said, when you just feel personally like you didn't get the best gift, you didn't get the one you really wanted, and maybe someone is especially musical and you've always wanted to be musical, and so as you focus on the fact that you're not musical or you're not as musical as somebody else, it can really get us down. And one of the things that can be really helpful is to turn to your parents or someone else who loves you and just say, I just need a reminder of what makes me great. Sometimes, depending on where we're at, it can be really difficult for us to be able to see it. And it can be so easy for everyone else. I have a funny story. So I showed up to an event where I was speaking, and I had this idea that the event was in the fall. And so I was going to wear fall clothes. And I went, and everybody was in all these bright colors. And they looked so good, and they looked so vivacious, and they looked so confident. And I got there and I thought, wow, like I look drab and boring and all these things. And so I turned to a friend and I just said, you are so fun. Like, you just look so fun. You look so bright. I kind of wish I would have worn something that was more like that. And she said, that's funny. When I saw you, I thought, boy, I wish I would have worn something more professional and a little more classy. And I thought that's the perfect example of how often we don't see the good in ourselves and how often we only see the good in other people. And as you're sitting there thinking like, for me, I don't have this, I don't have that, there's someone else who is saying, lucky her, she has this, she has that.
Absolutely. Love it. So good.
Number 6, those who like themselves are irrationally good to others. And I think that in a world where it can be kind of self-focused, really looking outside yourself can change the way you feel about who you are. It can increase your confidence. It can increase your satisfaction with your own life, which is something that I really love that the Policy Project, it really focuses on helping teens and adults look outside themselves and figure out how they can be irrationally good to others. We can do it on a big scale like this, but we can also do it just in our own lives. I know that the times when I'm looking out for someone, when I'm being sensitive to someone's needs, when I see a lack and I'm willing to fill it, that helps me feel purposeful, and having purpose increases our confidence. There's a lot of times I get a lot of messages with what I do, and it says, people often say, adults and teenagers, I don't have any friends. This person didn't invite me. I'm feeling left behind because of this. And I think the best thing that we can do in those situations is invite someone else. Look outside yourself and find the person who's feeling lonely. Find a person who maybe doesn't have all the people that they want in their life, and work really hard to serve someone else.
I love that. And I think one of the ways that is so easy to accomplish is just to share the kind thoughts that come to your mind. I think that that's such an easy way to be good to those around you. Love that.
I agree.
Okay.
My last tip is those who like themselves, forgive themselves and forgive others. And one of the things that is especially clear, especially during the teen years, is we all mess up. I messed up, Jane messed up, your friends are going to mess up, you're going to mess up. And the more willing we are to forgive people and give them a second or a third chance, the happier we're going to be. And that is because at some point we're all going to need that same thing. And a lot of times we make mistakes, things we don't even mean to do, but can feel very hurtful to other people. And I think understanding that we're all human and that none of us are perfect, and then giving people the benefit of the doubt, looking for the most generous way to see something. Really interesting experience. So there was a girl who was feeling very left out. She saw a bunch of her friends post a picture on social media of them all getting ice cream together. And so in her mind, she was so sad. She's like, I can't believe they'd all go without me. Nobody even called me, all these things. And like, they must not like me, going into this very like dark downward spiral about not having friends and being excluded. And later she found out that they had all actually just been at a practice together and had chosen to go after practice to grab some ice cream. And what's interesting about this is while her thoughts are real, they weren't true. That wasn't a true thought. Her friends were not looking to exclude her. Her friends were not moving on without her. Her friends were somewhere and they all went to get ice cream. And I think really catching ourselves in those thought patterns and saying, what is an alternate story to this? What's a more generous way of seeing this? Somebody leaves you out on the weekend, and instead of saying, they're the worst, I can't stand them, they're so mean, they're always excluding, is there another way to see it? Also reflecting on yourself. Is there a time that you may have done that to someone, whether you meant to or you didn't mean to, but do you still like them? I got another message from a mom who has a son, and he kind of feels like the third wheel in a friendship. There's two kids that are very close, and she said, my son always has to call. My son always has to ask, and these two kids are always hanging out together. And she said that it's making him feel so bad. Should he just move on? And I don't know their full situations. Maybe it is time to move on. But I suggested another way of seeing this. We all have people that we're really, really close to. And we all have people we're happy to have come along, but we might not think about all the time. And so can you see that situation as, these kids do like having me around. I'm not their first thought, but they're happy to have me join them. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay that they're happy to have me join them. Are there ways that we all can can be more generous in the way we see people. And then also when things are tough, or when someone does exclude you on purpose, or, do something that's really unkind, maybe they share a photo of you that's embarrassing, like, can you forgive that and let somebody have another chance? And then including that, can you forgive yourself? Because you're probably going to do something unkind. You might see something online that is not great for you and end up watching it. You might be really disrespectful to your parents, or, like the story before, cheat on an assignment. As we sit in shame and think we're the worst person ever, I cannot forgive myself, that keeps us where we are. But the moment we can forgive ourselves and then look for forgiveness from others, we can move on and we can get that confidence in ourselves back. So I think forgiveness is something that's really important, especially during those teen years when we all mess up all the time.
Yeah, I love this. I think that someone shared this little saying with me years ago, and it's, I'm going to give them a free pass. And it just, everyone deserves a free pass every once in a while, and I mean, if you're giving free passes every day, there's a pattern. But I loved that there was no thought that had to go into it. It was just, no, I forgive you on this one. I'm just going to throw it out the window and not get stuck on it. And that has helped me a lot in my life, to just give someone a free pass and then move on. But I just love this idea of forgiving and then forgiving ourselves. And I think the harder one in here is actually forgiving ourselves. Do you have any tips on how to do that? Just, I think it's can be a real tricky one.
I think as we just go into life in general and remember that, like, I'm going to make some mistakes. I'm going to mess up. The chances of me being perfect are zero. Right. Literally, they're zero. Yep. So I will mess up. I will make mistakes. I will sometimes do things that I know better. I will sometimes do that because I'm just a human. And so as we cultivate that idea, not that we want to do wrong things or we want to mess up often, but that we will. I think that's helpful. I think anytime I go into something imagining that it's going to be 100%, I'm almost always disappointed. And that's the same thing with me in my life. So I'm going to do my best. One of the phrases that I share with my son, who loves to play basketball, and sometimes he gets nervous before a game. And I say, something I know about you is that you always do your best. So whatever happens in this game, that was your best. And if there's things you want to work on later, let's do it. But for this game, I know something about you, and that's that you always do your best. And I think that we can be honest with ourselves. We can say, you know what, I did my best on that one. And then there's times when we can say, I didn't. I really didn't. I wasn't prepared for that. I kind of like phoned that one in, or I knew better. Like, I really should have invited her and I didn't. So next time I will. And I think that's the beauty of life, is that as long as we're learning, we're progressing, and things are okay. If I do something where I say, oh man, I wasn't as prepared as I wanted to be, and the next time I'm also not as prepared as I want to be, and the next time I'm also not prepared as I wanted to be, I'm not learning, and I'm going to feel some dissonance inside. I'm going to feel like I'm not really living my values, because I want to be prepared and I want to be someone people can count on. And maybe I'm not perfectly prepared, but maybe I'm a little bit better. And so really focusing on how you've changed, how you've grown, how you've improved, even if it hasn't gotten you to perfection.
I love that. And I think too, wow, as a mother, modeling this for my children is so important. And I could be better at it, and I need to be better at it. But just modeling that we're all going to make mistakes, and I can apologize. I can ask for forgiveness. I can forgive myself in two of the places I mess up, lose my temper, or whatever it is it's just remind me I need to do that a little better. So,
my 13-year-old, he said to me the other day, like, Mom, you're not as patient as you used to be. And I got really defensive, and I was like, well, let me tell you what's going on in my job. And let me tell you, like, you guys aren't helping around the house, and that makes me very stressed. And I'm going through all these ways to justify not being patient. And this is a way to not forgive yourself is by justification. So that's what I did. I just justified and justified and justified. And as I went to bed that night, it just didn't feel right. I just didn't feel right about my reaction to him. I was a little bit offended by what he said, because I don't like to think that I'm not as patient as I was. And that I really did feel justified in why I wasn't. And the next day, I just had that feeling in my heart that that was not the best response. And so I just said, hey, like, I don't want to be less patient than I used to be. Can you give me some examples of like when you've seen me be less patient? And as I'm thinking about your question, how do you forgive yourself? That's such a great, like, tangible example for me of the way I felt in my heart. When I justified, there was no forgiveness of self. I was just trying to like dig my heels in and be right. When I apologized and wanted to grow and learn from the experience, almost all of that shame went away. There was no more shame in the fact that I wasn't as patient as I was before. What changed was that I was ready to become better. And I think as you decide you're ready to become better, that's what gets rid of the shame, and that's what allows for your forgiveness of yourself.
Oh, that is so, so beautiful. I love that so much. All of these tips are just so great. And I love the theme that we get to focus on here today of liking ourselves more. And really liking ourselves more comes from values and not the outside, it's the inside out. We're focusing on things that we have control over. We're focusing on things that we can grow. They don't take natural talent. They're all things that we can do, anyone can do to like ourselves more.
Yes. And I think that is it's so crucial, because if we're looking to the outside to tell us we're great, if we're looking to the score at the game or where we're put in the band performance, which chair we're sitting at, like, we can really be disappointed because we're at the mercy of everyone else. But as we work on these things that are truly internal, we can have confidence regardless of what is going on the outside.
Oh, this has been amazing. I'm so excited to share this with everybody because this is going to change lives, truly. Thank you so much, Brooke, for joining us today, and just appreciate all that you're putting out in the world. And tell us about, I know you have a new product I want to actually share with everybody because I think it looks so fun.
Oh, yes. We have a new game which works for families or friends or groups of teens. I should have had it with me, but it's called Do You Even Know Me? And the concept is a little bit like conversation cards, but it's an actual game where you can be competitive and win. And it doesn't require you to get so deep about all your hopes and dreams. There's multiple choice answers. And so even for your reluctant connectors, it's something that's super, super fun and useful. I've played it with all ages, and believe it or not, everyone has had a good time.
Oh, so fun. I can't wait to get it and try it out.
Thanks, Jane.
Well, thanks again for being here, and just can't wait to share this, and thanks for all that you do.
Thank you.